The affair didn't start with flirting. It started with a stopwatch and a locked gym door. I didn't understand that at the time, of course. Back then, all I understood was that my wife was finally happy again. She used to come home exhausted, drained in a way that sleep didn't fix. She complained about feeling stuck in her body, like she was carrying a weight she couldn't shake. When she started going to the gym consistently, I saw the change almost immediately. Better posture, more energy. Laughter that didn't feel forced. I was proud of her. The personal trainer was my idea. She said she'd hit a plateau, that she didn't know what she was doing anymore. I told her hiring a professional made sense. Accountability, structure, results. All the words people use when they're trying to improve their lives. I even helped her choose him. We sat on the couch scrolling through profiles, certifications, before and after photos, client testimonials. When she paused on his profile, I didn't think anything of it. "He looks serious," she said. "That's good," I replied. "Means he'll keep you focused." I paid for the first month without hesitation. The early sessions were exactly what you'd expect. She came home sore, half complaining, half proud, told me about circuits and reps and how he wouldn't let her quit when she wanted to. I joked that I should hire him too. I never felt threatened. If anything, I felt included, like I was supporting something positive in her life. That's what makes it hard to explain how quietly everything shifted. The sessions moved from the main gym floor to a private training room. She said it helped with focus, fewer distractions, better form correction. "Sometimes he locks the door," she mentioned casually one night. "So people don't walk in." That sentence should have landed harder than it did, but I trusted the structure, trusted professionalism, trusted the idea that lines existed because people respected them, and I trusted my wife. The changes crept in slowly. She started leaving earlier than necessary, packing her gym bag the night before like it mattered not to forget anything. New workout clothes, not revealing, just intentional. Hair worn down instead of tied back. She started showering at the gym. "Just easier," she said. "Saves time." Her phone stayed face down on the counter after workouts. I noticed. I didn't comment. The first time I felt real unease wasn't dramatic. It was a pause. She came home one evening later than usual, cheeks flushed, eyes bright in a way that didn't look like exhaustion. She leaned back against the counter, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. "Long session?" I asked. She smiled. "Yeah, he pushed me hard today." There was a pause after she said he, just long enough to register. Later that night, lying beside her while she slept, I stared at the ceiling and replayed the past few months. The timing, the energy she carried home, the way the gym seemed to calm her instead of drain her. The next morning, her phone lit up on the nightstand while she was in the shower. I wasn't trying to look. The screen just turned on. "Tomorrow. Same room. I'll lock it. No name, just a preview." My chest tightened, but I told myself there were explanations. Private sessions, scheduling, nothing worth blowing up a marriage over. Still, I didn't forget the words. That day, I paid closer attention. She dressed for the gym carefully, adjusted her clothes in the mirror, checked her reflection like she was preparing to be seen, not to sweat. "You're really committed lately," I said. She smiled. "It feels good to be strong again." I watched her walk out the door and felt something cold settle in my stomach. Strength can be intoxicating, especially when someone else is there to witness it, measure it, reward it. That night, I picked up her phone, not in a panic, not with shaking hands, with a calm that scared me. I unlocked it easily. Years of trust made that simple. I searched his name. The conversation opened like it had nothing to hide. The messages weren't explicit. That was the worst part. They were familiar, encouraging, personal in a way that didn't belong to training. "You didn't quit today. I like when you trust me. You respond differently when it's just us. Next time, we won't rush." Rush what? Then I saw her message, sent that morning. I like when it's just you watching me. I put the phone back exactly where it had been. Same charger, same angle, same silence. And as I lay there listening to her breathe, the truth settled in with terrifying clarity. My wife hadn't cheated in a moment of weakness. She'd cheated in a place designed to push limits, blur boundaries, and reward obedience. With a man whose job was to watch her body closely, count her reps, time her rest, tell her when to keep going. That's when I understood. The affair didn't start with desire, it started with training. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. The messages didn't replay in my head like a movie scene. They settled into me instead, heavy and quiet, changing the way everything sounded when she spoke. Her voice, her explanations, even her laughter. It was like learning a new language overnight and realizing you'd already been speaking it wrong for months. I didn't confront her. That surprised me. I always thought I'd be the kind of man who demanded answers immediately, who needed everything dragged into the open. But something held me back. Not fear. Precision. Confrontation would change her behavior. Silence would reveal it. So I stayed quiet. From the outside, our life looked the same. We ate dinner together, we talked about work, errands, the small logistics of a shared life. I asked how the gym was going and listened carefully as she answered, nodding in the right places, smiling when expected. But now I heard the edits. Her sessions ran long more often than they didn't. An hour turned into 90 minutes. 90 minutes turned into, he wanted to work on recovery. When I asked casually, she always had an answer ready. Calm, reasonable, practiced. He says my form has really changed, she told me one night. He knows exactly how far to push me. He can tell what my body needs before I say anything. My body needs. I started noticing the days she trained versus the days she didn't. On training days, she moved differently. More intention in the way she dressed, not provocative, deliberate. Clothes that showed progress. Hair worn loose instead of pulled back. A light fragrance she never wore anywhere else. She packed her gym bag the night before now, carefully, like forgetting something would matter. She stopped showering at home after sessions. Said it saved time. Said she liked leaving the gym already clean. When she came back, she didn't look worn out. She looked settled, grounded, like she'd left something behind there. Sometimes she'd sit on the couch afterward, phone in hand, scrolling quietly with a faint smile that didn't belong to anything in the room with us. When I touched her shoulder, she'd tense for a split second before relaxing again. Sorry, she'd say, just sore. I stopped initiating intimacy, not to punish her, out of instinct. It felt like stepping into a space that no longer belonged to me, like crossing a boundary I hadn't agreed to but was expected to respect anyway. A few days later, I did something I hadn't planned. I drove past the gym, not to spy, not even consciously. It was on the way home, and the light turned red right in front of it. Glass front, bright interior. People coming and going with headphones and water bottles, all of them focused on becoming something better. I sat there longer than necessary, watching. That night, she mentioned him again. Not by name, just he. He says consistency is everything, she said. He says if I keep this up, I'll be unstoppable. Unstoppable. I asked a question then, keeping my tone light. Do you ever train with anyone else there? She shook her head immediately, too quickly. No, he prefers one-on-one. Less distraction. Less distraction. That phrase lodged itself somewhere deep in my chest. A few mornings later, I booked a session at the same gym. Not with him. Different trainer. Open floor, bright lights. Music loud enough to drown out conversation. People everywhere. No locked doors, no hushed voices. Corrections were verbal. Demonstrations were clear. Everything was visible. When the session ended, I felt tired, sweaty, normal. I didn't feel altered. That's when it clicked. What my wife was experiencing wasn't just training, it was intimacy disguised as discipline. That night, I checked her phone again. not scrolling aimlessly, not hunting desperately. I searched specific words: room, early, after. The messages filled the screen, still not graphic, still careful, but unmistakably personal. You're different when it's just us. I like when you trust me. I can tell when you're holding back. Next time, we won't rush. Next time. Then I saw the line that made my throat tighten. I don't feel judged with you. That told me everything. This wasn't just about attraction. It was about escape. About a version of herself that didn't have to explain or compromise or be accountable to anyone else. The gym wasn't exhausting her. It was becoming her refuge. The next morning, she left for another session. She smiled at me in the doorway, relaxed, confident, like someone heading somewhere they were welcomed. "Wish me luck," she said. I nodded. Good luck. As the door closed behind her, I understood something with complete clarity. This wasn't fragile anymore. This wasn't something that could be fixed with a conversation or a promise. It was routine, repetition, a locked door she walked through willingly, and if I didn't decide what to do next, I would spend the rest of my marriage standing outside that door, pretending I didn't know it was there. I stopped pretending this was something I could unknow. That's what changed everything. When you're still hoping to be wrong, you hesitate. You soften details. You explain things away because the alternative feels too final. But once the truth settles into your body, something shifts. Not panic, not rage. Clarity. I waited a few days after that. Normal days. The kind that almost pull you back into doubt if you're not careful. She trained like always. Came home calm, loose, almost lighter than when she left. Talked about soreness and progress, about how focused she felt lately. I listened. I watched. I didn't interfere. On the fourth day, she slipped. She came home early. Too early for a full session. And she didn't look tired. She looked charged. Eyes bright, movements quick like adrenaline hadn't finished burning off yet. "You're back already," I said, keeping my voice neutral. She paused, just a second too long. "He had a cancellation," she said. "We moved things around." Moved things around. That night, she fell asleep almost immediately. The kind of sleep that comes after emotional release, not physical exhaustion. Her phone was on the nightstand, face down, closer to her than usual. I waited until her breathing slowed. This time, I didn't hesitate. I unlocked the phone and opened the messages without searching. His name was already there, pinned at the top like it belonged. The conversation wasn't careful anymore. No professional tone, no coded language. Whatever boundary once existed had been crossed so many times it no longer mattered. "I shouldn't have kept you after hours." "I wanted to." "I know." "Next time we won't rush." Rush what? I scrolled further, my chest tightening with each message that confirmed what I already knew. There were voice notes. I didn't play them. I didn't need to hear his voice to understand what this was. Then I saw the message that ended any doubt. From her. Sent the week before. "I don't feel like myself with my husband anymore. With you, I don't have to be careful." Careful. That word hollowed me out. Somewhere along the way, marriage had become the place where she had to measure herself, where accountability lived, where another person's needs existed. The gym had become the place where none of that applied. I put the phone down and sat on the edge of the bed, my hands resting uselessly on my knees, feeling something solidify inside me. Not anger, not hatred. Resolve. This wasn't attraction. This wasn't temptation. This was replacement. The next morning, I didn't confront her. I asked one question. "Do you ever think about stopping training with him?" She froze mid-sip, mug hovering inches from her mouth. "Why would I?" she asked carefully. "You've been going a lot," I said. She set the mug down slowly. "He's important to my progress." "Progress," I nodded. "More important than us?" Her eyes snapped up then, sharp and defensive. "That's not fair." No, I said quietly. It's specific. She didn't answer. Later that day, while she was at the gym, I did something I hadn't planned to do until that moment. I went there. I didn't go inside. I didn't confront anyone. I sat in my car across the street and watched the entrance like it might tell me something I didn't already know. Her car was there, parked close, backed in, easy exit. Time passed. People came and went. Trainers rotated. Doors opened and closed. Her session ran long. Again. When she finally came out, she wasn't alone. He walked her to her car. Not touching, not openly intimate. Just close enough. Familiar enough. He said something that made her laugh, the real kind. The kind I hadn't heard aimed at me in months. Before she got in, she leaned toward him. Not a kiss. A pause. A moment that didn't belong to anyone else. That was enough. I drove home before she did and waited. When she walked through the door, I didn't let her settle into normal. I know, I said. She stopped mid-step. Know what? I know you're sleeping with him. The silence that followed wasn't denial, it was calculation. She stared at me, then slowly sat down on the edge of the couch like her legs had given out. Yes, she said. Barely audible. How long? I asked. She shook her head. I don't know. Months. How many times? She swallowed. I stopped counting. That answer hurt more than any number. I asked the last question I needed answered. Do you love him? She hesitated. I don't know, she said finally. I feel seen. Seen. I nodded, strangely calm, because in that moment I understood something clearly. This wasn't about who he was. It was about who she became when she was with him. And whoever that version of her was, she had chosen it over me. I stood up. I'm going for a walk, I said. She looked up, panic flashing across her face. We can fix this. I paused at the door. No, I said. You fixed it already. Just not for us. Outside, the air felt sharp and clean in my lungs. I walked until the noise in my head finally quieted. I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken the way stories prepare you for. I was resolved. Because once you see a locked door clearly, once you know who's on the other side, and who chose to lock it, you stop wondering whether to knock. You decide whether to walk away. I didn't leave that night. That surprised her. She was waiting for it. I could see it in the way she hovered, in the way she followed me with her eyes as I moved through the house. Anger would have made sense to her. Shouting, accusations, something loud she could react to. Instead, I became quiet. The next morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. Same routine, same coffee, same goodbye. I kissed her on the cheek before I left, felt her tense slightly, then relax. That reaction told me more than any confession could. For the next week, I did 3 things. First, I listened. I let her talk when she needed to, not to justify herself. That would have been easier to dismiss, but to explain how it happened. How it blurred. How it wasn't supposed to go there. How it started with training and discipline and accountability, and somehow turned into something that felt personal. She used the same words over and over. Connection. Focus. Feeling seen. I didn't interrupt. People reveal the truth more clearly when they think they're being understood. Second, I prepared. I met with a lawyer. Quietly. Not to threaten, not to posture, but to understand where I stood. What leaving would look like. What staying would cost. I learned which decisions were reversible and which ones weren't. That part was sobering. Third, I watched. She said she'd stopped training with him. Said she'd blocked his number. Said she was choosing us. I didn't argue. I didn't believe her either. Belief had already cost me too much. The confirmation came on a Tuesday. She said she was going to the gym alone, just to clear her head. No trainer, no session. She left earlier than necessary. I waited 10 minutes. Then I followed. I parked across the street like I had before. Same spot, same view. I didn't feel nervous. I felt detached, like I was watching a scene I already knew the ending to. Her car was there, so was his. I watched the door. They went in separately. Professional, careful. An hour passed, then 90 minutes. Then the lights in the private training room dimmed. That was it. I didn't need photos. I didn't need proof. I needed certainty. I drove home before she did and packed a bag. Not everything, just what mattered. Clothes, documents, the pieces of my life that were still mine. When she walked in later, she stopped short when she saw the bag by the door. "I told you," she said quickly. "I didn't see him." I looked at her for a long moment. "You didn't think I'd notice," I said calmly. "That's different." She started crying then. Real tears. Panic underneath them. "We can fix this," she said. "I'll quit the gym. I'll do anything." I nodded slowly. "I know," I said. "That's the problem." She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "You didn't stop because you wanted to," I replied. "You stopped because you got caught." Silence filled the space between us. I picked up the bag. "This isn't about him anymore," I said. "It's about the fact that you chose a locked room over a marriage." "That's not fair," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "It's accurate." She reached for me, desperation breaking through. I stepped back. "I'm not angry," I told her. "I'm done." That landed harder than anything else I could have said. I walked to the door and paused with my hand on the handle. "I hope you figure out what you were really training for," I said, "because it wasn't strength." Then I left, not slamming the door, not making a scene, just stepping out of a life that had already locked me out. The apartment I moved into didn't look like a new beginning. There were no fresh starts hanging on the walls, no symbolic gestures, no sense of reinvention. It was small, quiet, and mostly empty. White walls, a narrow window, and the hum of traffic far enough away to feel distant. I chose it because it didn't belong to any version of my life yet. It wasn't ours. It wasn't hers. It wasn't even mine in the way the old place had been. It was just space. For the first few nights, I slept on a mattress on the floor. No bed frame, no headboard, just something solid beneath me. I woke up often, not from dreams, but from the absence of noise. When you spend years sharing space with someone, silence doesn't feel peaceful at first. It feels like something's missing, like you've forgotten an important step in a routine you can't remember how to complete. I kept expecting my phone to buzz with an explanation that would somehow make sense of everything. A message that would reframe the story, soften the edges, give me a reason to doubt myself again. It never came. What came instead were apologies. Long, careful paragraphs that explained feelings without taking responsibility for choices. Then promises. Then fear. Then, eventually, nothing. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her, not because I needed her to suffer, but because I finally understood something I hadn't before. Some conversations don't move you forward. They pull you back into a version of yourself that already learned to ignore what mattered. Distance wasn't cruelty. It was maintenance. The days settled into a rhythm I hadn't experienced in years. I woke up when I woke up. I ate when I was hungry. I went to work and came home without wondering who I'd be competing with for attention that night. That alone changed more than I expected. My body relaxed in ways I didn't realize it had been holding tense. My shoulders dropped, my breathing slowed. The constant low-grade vigilance I'd been carrying, waiting for something to feel off, began to fade. The divorce was quiet. No courtroom drama, no shouting, just paperwork, signatures, and the strange finality of reducing a shared life to documents and dates. We spoke only when necessary. When we did, the conversations were polite and restrained, like two people carefully dismantling something fragile they both understood could not be repaired. Near the end, she asked me a question that surprised me. "Do you think I'm a bad person?" I remember looking at her then, not the woman I married, not the woman I lost, but the person standing in front of me searching for absolution. No, I said. I think you trained yourself to want something that only existed in isolation. She cried quietly after that. I didn't comfort her, not because I lacked compassion, but because that wasn't my role anymore. Comfort belongs to connection, and connection requires trust. We didn't have that. Time passed, not dramatically, not all at once. Just enough for things to change without announcing themselves. I bought furniture slowly, intentionally. A table I liked, a chair by the window, a lamp that cast a warm, steady light at night. Each addition felt like a small agreement with myself that I was staying, that I wasn't waiting for permission to move forward. I stopped replaying conversations in my head, stopped imagining alternate endings, stopped wondering what she was doing or whether the gym still mattered, or if the locked room still existed somewhere behind glass and fluorescent lights. That part of my life lost its authority. One evening, months later, I realized I hadn't thought about the betrayal all day. Not once. No mental checks, no comparisons, no quiet anger simmering beneath the surface. The absence of those thoughts felt unfamiliar at first, like noticing a pain is gone only after you move in a way that would have hurt before. I thought about what I'd learned, not in the way people frame lessons neatly after the fact, but in the way experience changes how you recognize danger. Betrayal doesn't always look reckless. Sometimes it looks disciplined, scheduled, rewarded. Sometimes it hides behind progress and praise and the language of self-improvement. Sometimes it arrives wearing structure and accountability, convincing you it's healthy because it feels productive. And sometimes the most dangerous part isn't the other person. It's the version of yourself that learns to look away because everything appears reasonable on the surface. I had ignored my instincts because they were quiet, because they didn't scream, because they asked for attention instead of demanding it. I won't do that again. Late one night, standing by the window, city lights flickering below, I felt something settle fully into place. Not relief, not victory, something steadier. Acceptance. I didn't need to hate her to leave. I didn't need to understand every detail to move on. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I only needed to stop standing outside a locked door pretending it wasn't there. That's when I picked up my phone. Her name was still there, untouched like a doorway I hadn't officially closed yet. I stared at it longer than I expected, not with longing, but with clarity. That contact represented a life where I waited, explained, compromised, and doubted myself in the name of keeping something intact that had already chosen secrecy over honesty. I deleted the number. No ceremony, no hesitation. Then I set the phone down, turned off the light, and lay back on the bed. The room was quiet, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. And for the first time since the truth surfaced, I felt something that didn't need explanation or justification. I felt whole. Not because I won something, not because I escaped something, but because I finally chose myself without needing permission.